Naughty Dog's The Last of Us 2 is out now, and video game fanatics across the globe are gearing up for the most intense 30-ish hours of video game brutality that money can buy. Before getting to that though, they first have to decide what difficulty they are going to go with, and that can be a task in itself. The Last of Us 2 can offer a challenge for all gamers across the scale, with Survivor and soon to be Grounded coming in patch 1.03 offering some seriously hairy and challenging moments. So, doing what we do best, we decided to put our heads together and give you 7 tips to make you a pro at The Last of Us Part 2, and more importantly, kick the game's hardest difficulty firmly in the ass. The Last of Us Part 2 is not really a third-person shooter in the traditional sense, especially on the higher difficulties. If you wade into battle like Rambo, you're going to get unstuck quickly, thanks to bullet impacts in the game and the fact that enemies all seem to have graduated from the Dead Eye school of shooting. This means that stealth is vitally important. That means sneaking up and taking foes down, preferably out of sight, and then rinsing and repeating the process. Don't forget to use bricks and bottles as distractions either, especially if there's an abundance of them in the encounter area you're in. A couple more tips, and by a couple mean quite a few. Firstly, infected beasties can't see your flashlight, so there's no need to turn that off at all. Humans obviously can see it though. Dogs can detect your scent, so don't get too close. Either avoid patrolling canines altogether or take them and their owners down as soon and as stealthily and quietly as possible. Going prone and crawling through long grass is a perfect way to stay out of sight, and by far the best way to line up a stealthy shot, using either the pistol with a silencer or the bow and arrow to ensure you remain undetected. Crouch everywhere in encounter zones. The only enemy at full speed crouch who's going to hear you is a clicker. For those of you who are new to The Last of Us, you can approach clickers head on as long as they don't shout at you. This screen acts like a sonar and will give you away. And last but by no means least, make every shot count. Bagging headshots using a silencer will of course mean they last longer, as it's a one shot, one kill, and for bows, a headshot means there's a chance to recover the arrow. With ammo in such short supply for all other weapons, you can't really afford to waste a single bullet by spraying them about. Don't be afraid to restart an encounter if you inadvertently wasted far too much ammo. Future you will thank you for that. The best strategy for combat in The Last of Us 2 is stealth, i.e. silently and slowly picking off enemies one at a time until it's just you alone with your thoughts. Sometimes that won't be possible though, and occasionally you'll be left with no choice but to go loud. That doesn't mean wading in like Arnie and playing The Last of Us 2 like a traditional third-person shooter. You still have to keep it smart. That's where engage and evade comes into effect, as it will keep the enemy guessing. Just make sure they don't see you move from point to point. For instance, you can use the scopes on your rifles at distance to take out foes and then crawl to another location while they struggle to hone in on your whereabouts. If you want to leave a trap mine where you took your shot, as that's where they'll investigate if they didn't see you, i.e. the source of the sound, then that is a mighty fine idea. Use this strategy with dogs too. Let them get your scent and then lead them and their owner into an explosive trap they won't be expecting. Distractions in The Last of Us Part 2 are important enough that they deserve their own category. Sure, we mentioned them when we talked about stealth a bit, but they're so much more important than that, especially against the new stealthy infected named Stalkers, and even more so if you want to lead foes into a trap. Bricks and bottles are fairly plentiful in the world, and for something so literally a throwaway, they're incredibly versatile. They can be used to lure enemies away from where you want to go. They can be used to lure enemies into traps. Or in the case of Stalkers, a handy distraction can coax them out of the woodwork so that you can keep an eye on where they are, which is especially important because they don't always show up in listen mode. Bricks and bottles can be used to open up paths as well by smashing otherwise inaccessible windows into buildings. Be aware of who's around though, as yes, they are unsurprisingly rather loud. The higher the difficulty in The Last of Us 2, the more important scavenging plays a part in your success. On, say, the moderate difficulty level, materials for crafting are quite plentiful, and the higher you raise the difficulty, the scarcer they become, meaning checking every nook and cranny is essential if you want to beat Survivor and Grounded when it drops. For purists like us, that means checking every shelf in every supermarket, looking under every truck, and so on. For those looking for more of a shortcut though, try enabling enhanced listen mode in the accessibility options, which allows you to send out a pulse to scan the environment for items, meaning that like Aerosmith, you won't miss a thing. Nice 90s reference there, folks. Is it cheating? Who cares? It's a single player game and how you play is ultimately up to you. If you want to know where all the best weapons, training manuals and best recipes are though, then head to our guide in the comments below where you'll find a video and text form of a comprehensive collectible guide for every chapter. And let it be known, folks, that finding the training manuals is essential, as well as picking up scavenge parts and supplements is the key to building a character that can cope with some of the more one-sided engagements later on in the game. Search now, build for the future, folks. It's worth it, I promise. Once you've scavenged all the goodies that The Last of Us 2 has to offer, it'll be time to make use of them. And honestly, the higher the difficulty, the more reliant you should be on crafting, thanks to the item's devastation and effectiveness. The most important upgrade is the ability to reinforce melee weapons and also the silencer. The former is found by the fire truck downtown in Seattle and the latter in the coffee shop in Capitol Hill. Former allows you to have close range protection when the shit hits the fan, and let me tell you folks, it will. And in case of the latter, it's essential if you want to play stealthily. Other upgrades like the stun bomb, also found downtown, and the trap mine, again tucked away in Capitol Hill, are also essential. Early in the game though, I can't recommend getting the trap mine recipe highly enough and using that to set traps for your foes while you remain in the shadows. It's safer that way, trust us. One last tip before we move on, folks. Because of the power and efficacy of melee weapons, don't upgrade them straight away. Wait until they only have 1 bar of health left before you do that though, because melee weapons aren't as plentiful as you might imagine, so protect them at all costs. How you level up your character early on in The Last of Us 2 has a big role to play in how successful you'll be, mainly because you won't be able to fully upgrade either your character and every weapon in one playthrough. Prioritising what is essential is the key to giving yourself a bit of a break along the way. First things first, don't waste supplements on things like quicker crafting, because honestly, if you're playing the higher difficulties smart enough, then crafting speed won't make a difference. Early on, you're perhaps even better off saving up your supplements until you pick up training manuals that have more useful abilities in them, especially the item recipe ones. Things like more health, surviving a lethal blow, they're great and all, but you should really approach Survivor and Grounded as if you won't be seen at all. And if you are, that you're going to take as fewer hits as you can. It's very much possible to play and succeed at The Last of Us 2 that way, especially if you adopt our strategies of stealth and more importantly, engage and evade. If you go toe to toe with the enemy, you might not lose, but you will expend a lot of ammo and supplies along the way, both of which you might need for an encounter later on. The same thing we said about saving supplements goes for weapons and scavenge parts as well. Like character progression, you're going to want to focus on weapons that you'll use when it comes to weapon upgrades too. Focusing on pistol power in preparation for you getting the silencer attachment is parts well spent, as is the bow when you get access to that during day 2. A 4x scope will prove invaluable if you're going to adopt the engage and evade strategy we suggested earlier, which you totally should by the way. In short, be sensible and save for a rainy day when you have something you really want to buy. Lessons that work well for both The Last of Us 2 and life in general. This is a tip I'd love to have learned a lot earlier than I actually did in The Last of Us 2, and that's to get your smashing hat on as early as possible. Yes, throughout The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog has seemingly hidden so many goodies behind so many sheets of glass. And no, I'm not just talking about glass windows that give you access to shops and the like. I'm talking even more granular here, like vending machines which often have health replenishing snacks in them, or smashing glass cabinets which often have crafting materials in them. Heck, they even hide some collectibles behind them too. Oh, and don't waste your bottles or bricks either. Just melee them if they're within swinging distance. And this goes without saying, do this only when no one is around. So clear the encounter area first and or use listen mode to make sure the coast is clear. One other tidbit of a fact as well, only use health kits before an encounter or if it's essential in an encounter. I said it because health bars are scattered all over The Last of Us 2, especially in vending machines, so use those first. So that's it folks, 7 tips to make you a pro at The Last of Us Part 2, and more importantly, tips to help you through the Survivor and Grounded difficulties, the latter when it drops post-launch. If you're feeling brave, you can also apply these tips to a permadeath playthrough when that edition arrives with patch 1.03 as well. Why not, eh? We'll definitely be giving it a go, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for watching folks, and as always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers folks, goodbye.